about civil disobedience. You've mentioned that a couple of times now. Would you be willing to participate in those as the mayor of Denver? Would you be willing to go out and protest these things?
I would. If I believe that our residents are having their rights violated, if I think things are happening that are illegal or immoral or un-American in our city, I would certainly protest it, and I would expect other residents would do the same.
Trump's new borders czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is willing to arrest leaders like yourself for standing in the way of these policies that they want to enact. Would you be willing to go to jail for these things?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that. And I'm also not seeking that. I think the goal is we want to be able to negotiate with reasonable people how to solve hard problems. Republican and Democratic presidents in the past have all tried to find solutions to these problems. President Reagan helped people get access to work so they could stay and support themselves. Biden and Harris worked on restricting entry at the border to close down. There are a lot of ways to approach this problem. We don't think it has to come to this. But yeah, I think when you look at, Ralph Carr has always been one of my heroes. He was the governor who in the middle of the internment of Japanese Americans said this was the wrong thing to do. And he stood up. It was unpopular. People were mad at him about it. That was in the middle of wartime. If the president or any of his actors are going to do things that we think are illegal or immoral or un-American, we'll stand up against those.
So y'all just heard that audio right there, or saw the audio in the clip that was hosted by this man named Kyle Clark. I don't think I've ever heard of this dude before. And he's sitting across from the mayor of Denver. And this was actually sent to me. And I said to myself, oh God, this is not going to end. Especially considering all the stuff that Denver and the state of Colorado has been going through, especially Aurora, in the last few months with that Sharon de Aragua gang. Now, let me preface this by saying, if you are subscribed to my Patreon, now I don't know if this video is going to get up first or maybe after that one, but I recently did a video for my Patreon talking about this Venezuelan illegal immigrant that came over across the border last year, I believe, and they was wrapped up in some stuff and everything like that. But they recently arrested him for an event that crime I should say that he committed back in August of this year, where he violated this 14-year-old girl inside of the home of someone that allowed him to stay there. I said, first off, there's no way I would have ever allowed this person to stay, some random to stay in my home. Some people don't even allow family members to stay there. You want a complete stranger who's not even from here to stay in your home. You must be living outside of your mind. And then he went and proceeded to violate this 14-year-old girl. They did catch him. And they arrested him. And there was a whole bunch of other stuff. If you want to know the whole story behind that, just go and look at if you subscribe to the Patreon, you probably would have already seen it by now, because I don't know if that video is going to go up first before this one or not. But I just said in that video, I make sure to mention that story here and vice versa. But like I said, you have the mayor of Denver sitting right here saying in so many words that he would be willing to go to jail for his beliefs that he is allowing the individuals who are coming over here to stay here and to work here. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, yes, you are the mayor of Denver, but have you seen what's going on in Aurora, a neighboring city, in the last few months with the people that you quote unquote want to stay and let have opportunity here? Yeah, they have opportunity, and look at the opportunity, what they did with it. They went and took over an entire apartment complex. They literally terrorized the people that were there. They started kicking them out. They started basically squatting in places that they weren't supposed to. I mean, we saw the video clips. They was kicking indoors and sticking people up and kicking them out of their homes and moving themselves right on in, like they literally own the place. At this point, they might as well own them. I saw another video clip where they tried to attack some man. I think it was in another part of Colorado, because I don't think it was Aurora. It might have been Denver. They were unsuccessful because that person was strapped, and they started firing back. Now, they didn't hit the person, but they did enough for them to stop whatever it is that they were trying to do, and they ended up fleeing. And you have this mayor who says he's willing to go to jail for it. They said, if he comes to arrest you, are you willing to just allow yourself to be arrested? He said yes. And then he started mentioning other administrations that were doing stuff for illegals and all types of stuff like that. Listen, it is no way that I could have sat up there with a straight face and said, oh, I'm going to go to jail because for this. No, it's not happening. And then when you see what's going on, or what has been going on in that city, in that state rather, and you want to continue to allow this, And shout out to Rob Blacklight, because you know he has his you know, the I forgot what he called it, the undocumented bros, the undocumented. The same thing is going on in Chicago with Brandon Johnston. He's basically doing the same thing that this mayor is doing, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. I know their constituents are pissed at them. They're probably waiting for the time when the election comes up so they can cycle these clowns on up out of there. And I think in Chicago, they can't recall Brandon Johnston. I forgot how the policy is. Someone in Chicago let me know. I don't know how the policy works in Denver. I don't know if it's the same way, but if someone lives in Denver, let me know about that too. And again, these are sanctuary cities. So with that being said, they can't really, and when by they I'm talking about ICE, because it is a sanctuary city, they really can't do anything about them. They can detain them for a little bit, but then they have to release them right on back. That's why they send them to, that's why they go to these sanctuary cities, because they know these are the places they can go to really run to really do whatever it is that they want to do, and no one's really going to check them. Hence why the mayor of Denver just said what he said. What would also be interesting is if they had allowed these illegals to vote, as if that'll happen. But you know what? I never say never, considering the stuff that's been going on for the last year or so. And even if they did, most of them would probably backstab them and end up voting for the other side. I mean, look at what they tried to do in this previous election. They was saying, let's just go ahead and talk to the brown folks, as the black people don't want to get together. Let's go talk to them. And we saw what them exit polls look like in them battleground states. If that's what they look like in them battleground states, you can pretty much guess what they look like in every other state. And I'm willing to bet the same thing will probably end up happening here. So in my opinion, this is a hill that apparently the mayor wants to climb up and die on. I said, let him go ahead and do it, but I don't think it's going to work out for him well in the end. He has to know that. And if he doesn't, I'm sure he'll find out eventually. But wait, there's more. So I had to throw this update in here about the mayor's comments. And I kind of figured he was eventually going to walk those back, because I'm sure people probably pressured him to, or he got a lot of pushback. And 9 times out of 10, it was more so the latter rather than the former. So this is coming from the Denver Gazette. Now, and if you notice that the date on this is November 23rd, but it was updated on December 16th. So this was almost nearly a month after he made those initial comments from the video that you just saw. So let's see, what did he change? Like, what was what's his stance now versus what it was then? Denver Mayor Mike Johnston walked back comments about deploying the city's police forces at the county line to keep out federal forces carrying out President-elect Donald Trump's plans to deport thousands of immigrants unlawfully staying in the city. Would I have taken it back if I could? Yes, I probably wouldn't have used that image, Johnston told 9 News in an interview. That's the image I hope we can avoid. What I was trying to say is that this is an outcome I hope we can avoid in this country. I think none of us want that. Here's the thing. What he said in that video, that's how he actually feels. What he's saying now, that's the cleanup version, or trying to clean up what he said. He's literally trying to walk back what he said, but the people are like, okay, we'll believe it when we see it. Johnston had drawn parallels to Tiananmen Square in an interview with Denverite, saying he believes city residents themselves, alongside the city's police force, would resist a mass deportation campaign. He suggested using the Denver police against federal agents. More than us having DPD stationed at the county line to keep them out, you would have 50,000 Denverites here, Johnston told Denverite. It's like the Tiananmen Square moment with the rose and the gun, right? You'd have every one of those Highland moms who came out for the migrants, and you do not want to mess with them. In the 9 News interview, Johnston said he would protest himself. I would if I believe that our residents are having their rights violated, Johnston said. I think things are happening that are illegal or immoral or un-American in our city. I would certainly protest it, and I would expect other residents to do the same. As for the possibility of getting arrested, Johnston said, yeah, I'm not afraid of that, and I'm also not seeking that. But in the video, didn't you kind of say that though? So again, notice his tone has completely changed. Someone must have gotten his ear. He said, I think the goal is we want to be able to negotiate with reasonable people on how to solve hard problems. Johnston told 9 News he does not oppose all deportations, particularly immigrants who have committed violent crimes, but he said immigrants unlawfully staying in the U.S. who have not committed crimes should not be swept up. But see, that's a risk. That is a huge risk. Are all of them committing crimes? No, but the thing is, they're going to say way too many of them are, but so we can't trust that only some of them won't eventually do it. So you got to like kind of figure this out here. Like, what exactly are you about to do with this situation at hand? And let's not run the risk that, okay, we got these individuals out of here. Who's to say that the ones that you said were not doing anything are then going to flip and do something eventually down the line? Johnston has been defending Denver's response to the illegal immigration crisis, which has cost taxpayers more than $75 million to date. Colorado and Denver are both sanctuary jurisdictions. No legal definition of a sanctuary city or state exists, but broadly speaking, it refers to a community that expressly refuses to cooperate with federal authorities on enforcing immigration laws. Back in 2019, Colorado adopted a law whose provisions fall under the broad outlines of what constitutes a sanctuary state. Several Colorado counties have sued the state over the law. In 2017, the Denver City Council passed an ordinance that prohibits city employees from collecting information on immigration or citizenship status, prohibits the sharing of any other information about individuals for purposes of immigration enforcement, and memorializes predominant practices by prohibiting use of city resources or city cooperation with civil immigration enforcement. In his interview with Denverite posted on Friday, Johnston said if the Trump administration blocks the ability of people illegally staying in the country to work, then he would explore the possibility of city and state work authorizations. Immigration policy, including work authorizations, falls under the exclusive purview of the federal government. At the peak of the border crisis spilling into Denver, Johnston embraced the role of a de facto spokesperson for inferior cities grappling with the tens of thousands of immigrants the local government have fed, housed, and transported. Johnston did not specifically talk about stopping the flow of immigrants into Denver. Instead, the mayor sought strategies to ease the burden of his city. The mayor notably stayed clear of talking about border security, an omission that underscored the ideological senses with which Democrats and Republicans often view the border crisis. Critics have argued that Trump's mass deportation plan would be costly, while supporters maintain that it not only feasible but necessarily, particularly because Trump vowed to fight illegal immigration, a top issue for American voters, during his campaign. Supporters also argued that illegal immigration enforcement in America's interior cities, along with strict border controls, would serve as a deterrent, much as Denver's offer of free housing and transportation drew tens of thousands of immigrants to the city over a 2-year period. In Colorado, some 43,000 immigrants who illegally crossed the southern border have arrived in Denver since December 2022. About half have stayed, the equivalent of adding roughly 21,500 people, or a city the size of Golden, in less than. The vast majority are from South and Central America, particularly Venezuela. Denver officials decided early in the crisis to provide, largely at the expense of taxpayers, temporary shelter and onward travel for newly arriving immigrants. Originally, officials believed the draw was Denver's proximity to Mexico and its status as a sanctuary city, but Texas officials in El Paso believed that the city's offer of shelter and onward travel, while well-intended, actually made Denver a magnet for immigrants. And I have a subscriber, and y'all probably know who I'm talking about, who is a resident of Colorado. I can't remember exactly where in Colorado. It might be Denver, it might be another city. So they could definitely speak very much to that. And I'm sure that they are probably just about as pissed about this as anybody else living in that city, and probably just overall that state. But yeah, somebody, in my opinion, probably got in his ear. This right here, that first video, I don't know, I can't remember if I said it or not, but that's probably going to be a moment where he probably won't get reelected, because people going to remember what he said and say, oh no, he's not about to get reelected. But then again, they might reelect him. I'm not entirely sure. But then again, in the back of his head, this could be a reason why he came back and said, I'm walking back a little bit of it. Notice he's not walking back completely of what he said. Only the more, I guess you could say, extreme elements of what he said. So definitely keep an eye on that. So I'm not surprised that he kind of changed his tune, because I believe some people probably got in his ear and told him, like, dude, this is not going to work. Especially if you remember what happened out there in Colorado a few months ago, less than a year ago. I don't think I ever got an opportunity to talk about it. Maybe I did, or I didn't. I talked about a lot of stuff last year. But y'all remember what was going on in Colorado at the time when people was going over there and taking over those apartment complexes and kicking in people's doors and all types of stuff. And I'm sitting saying to myself, that's all going on, and you're gonna sit up there and say what you just said. Yeah, that's now. Imagine if they came to your home and did that to you. The tune what he said in that initial interview would not have ever even entered his brain to say, or just on impulse left his mouth to utter. So, there it is. I don't know what that's going to do for his re-election chances, but if he doesn't get re-elected, this moment right here is probably going to be it, no matter how much he walked back.